We just started see base the Maimon Katnus beyond Darkecha page Reish Mem Vav. We just started. We're up to Reish Mem Zayin, but let's just go back to Reish Mem Vav base. So Hashem, we was like to have the experience of the Tzaddik, the Mechaber, being with us on the Shabbos, which you just have a picture of that person, those who was like to be here last Shabbos, a picture of that person saying these words. It's something very, very different than reading a sefer. And I was talking to my wife and to some chaver about this. That, you pick up a Kedushas Levi, you pick up a Tanya, and try to imagine what it was like to hear those words spoken and to be there in the presence of the Tzaddik, and how different that is. And we're very fortunate to have started this discussion through this farm, and now to have him to meet him personally. And we hope, as Hashem, to be able to continue with that. And there's David showed me a whole list of new svarim that he's working on. And as Hashem, we should be able to mishtatef and bring those svarim out to the world. Everywhere I go, this is Darkecha. These are the svarim that are being moved. And I think it's safe to say that we really were, we started that over here. Hashem, that's where it began. And I think that Halberstadt appreciates that. I didn't talk to him about that, and I mentioned to my son, to Binyamin, and somebody had asked me why didn't I I didn't give any introduction. So you probably have noticed that I don't do that with certain people. I don't do that. I never did that with Rav Schwartz. I never did that with Rav Tzimei. Here's the great Mashpia from Yerushalayim, Rav Tzimei. It was just a different. First of all, they would be very, very upset about that. Bam is upset, not like rabbis always say, "Oh, really, please." Please, which really means please. It's just not. It's not becoming for such people to even use these phony American silly things. It's just the or the Tzaddik is something which, in our generation, it's very hard for us to experience. And Baruch Hashem, we was and I get out, thank David and the Lawrence for that, facilitating, and the other chaver that were over there from their end. So let's learn. Baruch Hashem. Katnus. Well, embassy. Again, we're just going over that little paragraph on Reish Mem Vav Beis. Our embassy should call Pam Shod the Nichnas the Katnus. Who sims his Zachal L'Saimus and Madregish Amad Ba. This is very connected to what we're learning in the Thursday Chabura on Yeshivas Nefesh. The truth is that when a person goes into Katnus, the problem that we have, as we began with last week, is that we see Katnus as a Zman P'tur, like it's a time when I'm not doing well. For whatever reason, things are not davening, learning, mitzvahs, could be even with things that are not so good. It's a time that's not going well. I hope this time will pass. And it's a time that is not included in the schedule of my accomplishments in life. It's a non-accomplishment zone. And if anything, I'm hoping just to try to not slip too badly. And that's a very, very, very terrible mistake, to look at the Zman of Katnus as some sort of a b'diavad, even on some level, an exemption. It's not a time of Avodah. What this entire Maimer is about is that Katnus is something that all of us go through. We know even some of the great Tzaddikim, like the Kedushas Levi, spoke about the Katnus that he went through for a certain period of time. And all the Tzaddikim, Rabbi Nachman, that we know, that told us of the times of Katnus that they had, and Katnus is a time of a certain type of avodah. It's not. There's no time in our lives where it's not going, and whatever, just accept it. There's no such thing. Every single moment of our lives is avodah Hashem. So what is the avodah during Katnus? So the first thing is to understand shekol pam she'adam nichnas l'Katnus, that when there is a time of Katnus, l'simish zochel l'saymus madrega shomad. You might not look at yourself in this way, but the truth is that there was something that you were doing until now, whatever that avodah was, and whatever level it was on, depending upon who you are, that you've completed. Doesn't mean that you've necessarily completed it with A+. Could be you complete it with a B-, but you're ready to move on to something new, to something else, to something greater. And you're now entering into a madrega chadasha. You're in that place in between. You're in that place in between. Page Reish Mem Zayin. Klal hu. Because the klal is shekol madrega chadasha maschila b'katnus. Every new madrega begins with katnus. Every new madrega begins with katnus. The same way that a baby begins life, a human being begins life in a place of terrible katnus, of unawareness and without seichel, without only like the Maharal explains, we've spoken about over the years. Only an animal begins with a very, very tiny, short little time of katnus, because an animal doesn't have any avodah. There's no inyan of an animal growing and changing and developing and there's no working on itself. The animal is, like Maharal says, behemoth. The letters ba ma. It is what it is. Das is das. Therefore, since the animal is what it is, so it has one day, but it has to 2 days, whatever each animal is, until it gets its footing and the mother helps it around a little bit. And that's it. And then the animal is off and running. But a human being, years and years and years, because an Adam is, the Maharal explains, is Adama. And Adama means something which is a place of where things grow, and they grow gradually and develop. Therefore, a human being, by definition, has to go through that time of a cotton shame bodas. Missing that awareness. That's katnus. Every new madrega, anytime there's a level of birth, of something new, there's going to be katnus. And if you're trying to build up a business, initially there's going to be katnus. All kinds of sfeikas and all kinds of mistakes and things that require hard work and development. But at the beginning of something new, there's katnus. People don't want that. People resist that very, very much. I mean, kids now, they're 16, they want to be, real estate developers. But there's katnus. That itself, that machshava is a machshava, terrible katnus of immaturity. Everything begins with katnus. Yamad ben Yisayna katnus, and there is that nisayim. There's that trial, that test, that challenge that one has to go through when trying to begin something new of katnus. And if you are able to understand that and to do what's necessary during that time, as Ayiskel Gadlus. Avinu was called in Navi Avinu was called Gadol Barna. He's called the great giant. Avinu is a Gadol. Don't find such a title for the people in the Tzaddikim in Tanakh. Avinu was called Gadol Barna. He was a giant of a person. Avinu was the one who, in these parashas that we're going together with Avinu through the 10 Nisyanos. I saw in Nisyanis that Avinu was tested with 10 Nisyanis. And Avinu passed these tests and moved from a place of katnus on his madrega katnus and the world of terach, the world of Avodah Zarah, katnus, to becoming Avram Avinu. And that transition from Katnus to Godless was a time of nisyanis, of challenges, of being tested. V'myamud b'nisayon Katnus, as hayizke legadlus, la'ashlomas hamadrega chadasha. To come to that madrega that you're hoping to reach. Now you might not feel that all the time. Look in Tov Chaf Aleph. Very often you don't feel at all that there's been any upward movement. You need to understand that oftentimes we don't feel the change between madregas. The change is taking place. If Adam Yishal, im Yeshli Madrege Chadash, Maya Avodah Siba, Atshuva he Shabbadah Klal, Ein Adam Yodeh Bebir, Maya Avodah Chadash. In the same way, when a person would ask, so if I'm on a new Madrege, so what is my Avodah now? The answer is, B'derech Klal, Ein Adam Yodeh Bebir, Maya Avodah Chadash. Usually a person doesn't know, like, what am I supposed to do differently now? And sometimes the difference between one level to another, again, we're talking, it doesn't mean we're not talking necessarily about from one period of a person's life to another. It could be from day to day. It could be one part of the day to another part of the day. So it's sometimes very, very subtle. What's the difference? What is it what's the change? And the ikr is whatever it is that the whatever new madrega is unfolding, one has to be makabel b'ahava, that time of Katnus, as we're going to learn about. And to ask and to daven to Hashem always, Hareini Hashem Darkecha. Hashem, I'm yours, and take me along on the journey. I don't always know where I'm going and where I'm getting with all of this, but I'm humbly accepting that if I'm going through some Katnus, that there's a reason for this, and that your intention is that I should handle this Katnus in a way of godless as much as I can, and that through this I'll be able to pass this test and move on to something greater in my life, even though I don't always know what that is, or I can't understand or see what that is. And Avraham was told, Elaretz HaShareka, he didn't know where he was going. Avraham didn't know where he was going. He just believed that he was being sent, but he didn't know where he was going. He just surrendered himself to join HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, we don't have to go through this, the Nisyonis and the Katnus. And even when it came to the Akedah, this parasha, the Akedah, we have some Hakim Mirachok. What is it that Hashem wants of me exactly? And imagine if for Avraham Avinu, what was going through his mind? We have some Chazals that let us in a little bit, but what was going through his mind? If Hashem wants to make me to something great and to a great, and for me to build a great nation, he's telling me to shach my kid. So what exactly is happening here, and how is this supposed to make me into a greater person, into a better father? How's that supposed to happen? But to be makabel, the test is to be makabel. And to be makabel the Katnus b'ahava, that's the Avodah during that time. And then Hashem reveals it. This is through these nisyonis you became Avram Avinu. B'shas Ma'aseh, Avram Avinu didn't. What was the godless that he experienced by lifting a knife up to his kid? What happened here? How is this something which is better than before? This must have been for him also a terrible Katnus. I'll describe a little bit about the nisyonis that he went through. And when you read Chumash, it sounds like, oh, it's okay, but it wasn't okay. And so it was with all the nisyonis. But a person doesn't know this. He doesn't know this. He's not familiar with this program that Hashem has for us of experiencing Katnus as a means of moving on to godless. Then the Yetzirah comes and says, instead of this being a time of Katnus and a time of Nisayon, the person looks at this as, he labels it as a time of Nefila, of falling, of failure. And the Yesod tells him, so what point is there in all of the Avodah that you've done? If you see you try to work on something, and here you are again, you have fallen. It's a Nefila. We're talking about this in the Thursday Chabura. This is Rabbi Nachman. That this is a new Yetzar. The Yetzar is Mischadish. It's a different Yetzar. But the point is that the person identifies. He sees this as being, I'm the same person that I was. I tried working at something, and this is a Nefila. So if it's a Nefila, so what's the point? It's all that I've done until now. It's like a person's business fails. So the feeling the person has when his business fails is all the money that I invested and all the work and all the time and effort that I put into this business was for nothing. And he takes that way of thinking and he applies it to his Avodah Hashem. That all the time and effort that I put into this Avodah Hashem to be in a certain place, all of that was for nothing. Because I'm no better than I was before, and I have failed. So he looks at it the same way as failing in school or failing in business. And when you fail in school, so they might tell you, you have to repeat the course if you failed that class. And if you failed in business, you have to scramble to try to get some money to pay people back or something like that. But what's the tachlis? What did I accomplish? What did I gain? What's the point? And that brings to a terrible place, a state of yeush, of discouragement. And the feeling the person has is that I cannot be Matzliach. And all of those thoughts that come in that nusach of you always fall, there's always a problem, you've never been able to sustain this. Now, once you're in that place of yeush, there's a difference between Katnus and yeush. Instead of calling this what it is, which is Katnus, which is a time to prepare for a new madrega, instead you call it yeush. That's how you define this time, yeush. You lose your will and your determination to fight. You just don't want to fight anymore. And even when it comes to this whole tkufa that we're in of the Milchama and Eretz Yisrael, so there are those individuals who they look at the situation and they see this situation with our enemies from every single direction coming after us, and then the rest of the world coming after us in a different way, not with missiles that explode, but words that explode, and hatred that's explosive in the whole world. So you could look at that as a time of we've tried, and here we are again, and nothing has essentially changed. And to be misyayish. That's generally the mahalach of those who identify with being on the left, or now call themselves the extreme left, progressives, however they're called. That's b'derech klal their mahalach in this world, which we see that Baruch Hashem here in America, that the American people rejected that, and in Eretz Yisrael there's a milchama that's coming from our enemies, and within Eretz Yisrael there are those who are the Messiahim, there are those who are the Oivdim, and the Messiahim are they're very easy to identify, and the Oivdim become more determined to win and more determined to fight and to succeed than ever before, and believe that whether they're religious or they're not religious, but on some level, in some way, however it is for a non-religious person, because every non-religious also has a moon in him, of course, and to believe that Hashem is preparing us. This is all an avodah for the next madrega, which we all are davening. It's geula, but this is for a higher madrega, and that in America that just unfolded in such a powerful way with these past couple of weeks and what's happening now. And again, the Messiahshim are still all crying and without any cheshbon and nefesh, and it's all yeush and yeush on giving up on the human spirit and that whole avira of nefila and yeush, nefila and yeush, that the majority of Americans didn't buy. And in Eretz Yisrael also, Lavdil, in Eretz Yisrael, the great vast majority of Jews don't buy that. They don't accept that. Yes, it's a time of Katnus. Katnus, you're in shelters, you're in war. People are not home. Everywhere you go, you see low line of people who are injured, and you see some in almanis. So it's a time of Katnus. Do you identify this as nefila or as Katnus? That's what makes the whole difference. If it's a time of nefila, then that generates an attitude of despair, of yeush. If the attitude is an attitude of, or if the definition, if one defines this as a time of Katnus, that we get preparing for a higher madrega. Every haskalah has Katnus and unbelievable nisyanis, and the nisyanis are on the battlefield and in the homes and in the hospitals. Those are the nisyanis. And how do you identify that? And there are those who their way of thinking and their way of speaking is coming from a place of nefila, of weakness and nefila. The scary thing is, of course, that our enemies are very smart at being able to tell when Jews are in a place of nefila or in a place of Katnus. Our enemies always can tell. So they're good at that. They can smell when a Jew is a fallen Jew, as opposed to a Jew who has become strengthened by and determined to come to a new madrega. Our enemies can smell that in a second, what kind of a Jew is this. They can tell that in a second. It's a completely different person. The whole mahalach of life is a different mahalach. When it comes to Yeush, Hayetzer, Reish Latzos, Avodah, Adam, I feel a hapil or so the farm shame time. When there's Yeush, then not only does the person stop moving forward, not only does he not progress, but he could be thrown back into, once I'm in the field, he could be thrown back to something much worse than ever before. And I spoke to Rav Halberstadt about this. I told him that we're learning the Maimer of Katnus because I believe that it's so important. I mean, the whole Sefer, but right now, Am Yisrael is in this place, and how to understand where we are. And he said to me that this is the Ikar Avodah now. This Avodah of Katnus. This is the Ikar Avodah right now. Like we spoke yesterday from Rabbi Nachman, that the Yetzirah is a shakran and a ganav. A shakran and a ganav. A liar and a thief. A liar, because the emesu bidyuk leipach, because the truth is the opposite. Imagine if Avraham Avinu, and he would have gotten this Nisan of Darkecha, and he would have said, "I forget it. There's nothing I can do to please him." And I thought it was pretty heroic of me to head away from home and stuff like that. And now he's this is just not anything that. I can't handle this and so on. He could have walked away from it, as many people do. So that would have been the end of the whole enterprise of Am Yisrael. Finished. Shashakin. V'mashu b'diuk lahefech. Davke beglal she'etzlachta v'gamarta is davke because you passed the test of Lech Lecha and the other test of Kibshana Eish and so on, and by Paro, Abimelech, all these things. Is davke because you passed this test. Yislachta v'gamarta. That's exactly what we were learning yesterday. Yislachta v'gamarta. And you killed that Yetzirah from yesterday. And you were Matzliach. V'kanisa kaimer shlema v'avodah. And you have acquired Now, it's time to move on to something. And now, there's a new madrega. Therefore, it's hard. Because every new madrega is hard. Just like it's hard going from 7th grade to 8th grade to high school, and from high school to college, and to go to get married, and every new madrega is hard. And is filled with nisyonos. L'chein yesh koshi. V'av shebizman hakatnus nir l'adam shum noifel. Now, you look at yourself during the time of katnus, and you say, look, this is an avila. Because I'm not doing well. It seems to me that I'm falling. I don't feel like I'm on a higher level. I feel like I'm in a lower place. The Torah teaches us that you must know bevadai that it's not a nefila, it's the beginning of a madrega chadasha, of a new madrega. Al shetchilas madrega hitamid kasha. The beginning of a madrega is always difficult. Kikol haschalas kashas. There's a klal in all of creation that all beginnings are hard. Therefore, it seems that it looks to you like a nefila. Look at the bottom of Chabez. If a person thinks about this deeply, and he thinks about how his avodah was in the past, the Katnus Kazu, when he was in his place of Katnus, and how is it now? He's able to see that there's been progress. He's able to see that there's been progress. That, of course, there are times when a person just simply goes completely off. We'll talk about that. But and especially if you look at it over a period of time, not yesterday and today, but over a period of years, you can see that. Oftentimes in a person's marriage. Again, there are times where the marriage is just not shaykh. But in a situation where people are trying to, two people are trying to get to understand each other, to get used to each other, and to grow in that relationship. When they're older, they can look back on the early times of their marriage and the disagreements and sometimes fights that they had, and they see that even though the b'shas ma'aseh this was terrible, and I don't know if I could do this, and maybe I married the wrong person, I shouldn't stay in this marriage, and so on and so forth. Again, I'm not talking about their times, of course, but not a time like that, not a person like that. And you look back and you see that when you look back 10, 15 years to the earlier disagreements and fights, your ears get a little bit red because you see them as being very, very silly, and you're presently occupied with your new fights and your new disagreements. But the playing field is more chashiv. It's more chashiv. You're not always, but usually when you look back, and b'shas ma'aseh when it happened, you thought this is it. I'm done. I'm going back to mommy. It's terrible. I can't live like this, and so on. And then when you look back, when you're older, you look back at how it was by the Shana Rishona business, and sometimes the Shana Rishona is for more than 1 year, and you look back at that time, and you see that we've come a long way. We've come a long way since then. That doesn't mean we don't have new nisyanis, because we're supposed to go on to new madregas in our relationship, but we've come a long way. That's Baruch Hashem. Look at each other, look at what we have, and how we've grown together. It doesn't mean that we don't have new nisyanis, and that we don't go through times of katnus, and that we had this disagreement. Say that, but it's not a nefila. It's not crushing fall, and my whole life is not. It's a madrega chadasha. It's katnus, and to look back and to see that it's very, very different. Even the types of disagreements are very, very different. How they've changed things have changed over the years. A person can look in such a way. But it's very hard to see that from a Monday to a Tuesday. But when there's some more time, you can see this. You can see this with your kids also. So it's very, very hard when you have a child. It's difficult to see that from one day to the next. But over time, you see that, and you look back and how it was, and how things changed over time. Marshal Adam, back on top. Marshal Adam Sha'il B'Binyan Shel Kama Kaimis. Marshal, a person who's going up the stairs in a building that has it's a Kama Kaimis. It has a tall building. So when he gets to the first floor. Now, one of the things you might have noticed in Eretz is that sometimes there are a bunch of floors till you get to Kama Aleph, you know. So when you get to the first floor, there's one of the Chevri here is a very smart guy. We were talking about apartments in Eretz Yisrael, and he said to me, never buy an apartment if there's only one elevator. Which is what we have, one elevator. Now, Bill, he says, always make sure there are two elevators, because you never know when it's going to go. And then, of course, that's exactly what happened the day that my wife, I didn't go together, my wife went earlier last year to set things up, and she got there with all the stuff, and it was a bad day with the elevator. There's no elevator. So, until you get to the first floor, you could already be tired. So hine betchila ksha'ilu kamalef, umis armates ba'aliyas hamadregas, v'yesh lo koshi. All right, you might not be in the best shape, and going up the stairs, even by the time you get to Kama Aleph, could be that it was hard. You know, so it's hard. You're tired. Shabbos, right? So it's hard. The steps. That's another Indian of the Shabbos elevator. How that works. So Misconceptions ba'aliyas hamadregas v'yesh lo koshi. Aval acher shehiz gaber ala koshi. All of madregas. But once you have been misgaber and you did not stop halfway, and you made it to the floor that you were going to, that you wanted to get to, then you're able to enjoy all that you wanted to experience on that floor, family, whatever, wherever you're going to see on that floor. So now he wants to move on to the next floor. He has other people he wants to see there. He thinks he's got to do upstairs. So in the shuv yesh no madregas. So I can't believe it. I already had this. I was already tired getting to Kama Aleph, to the first floor, and I went through that difficulty, that challenge to get to the first floor. And here I am again. Shuv yesh no madregas. There are steps. The shuv yesh no koshi. And again, it's hard. So it seems that the difficulty and the challenge that I had before is repeating itself. It's the same exact challenge. And that's exactly how it feels. You're going up 20 steps. So it's the same thing. It's just chazer alatzmo. It's repeating itself. But the truth is, Akshav Madregas shall come at base, but you're not going up to Kama Aleph, you're going up to Kama base. It feels like it's the same, but it's an aliyah. It's higher. Even though it feels like it's hard, and you could stop, in the middle, and say, this is a nefila. Because I have the same yitzhar not to continue on. I'm here by the 10th step, and I'm huffing and puffing, and I'm having the same yitzhar that I had when I was going from 0, Fs, to Aleph. I had the same, and now here I am again. So I really haven't gotten anywhere in my life. And the answer to that is you're an idiot. You're now going to a higher floor. it feels like the same nisai. So you could stop and say, "Oh, this is ridiculous." Every single time, anywhere I go, I have this problem, and I'm just not getting anywhere in my life, and to go back to Ephes. But the truth of the matter is that it feels like it's the same, and you're in the same place, but like we learned yesterday in the lesson of Rabbi Nachman, you already killed Kaima Aleph, that first level. You already killed. You already made that. Now it's Madrega Kama Beis. It's the next floor, and it's a different Madrega. It's a different Madrega. Even in English, they call them stories. So it's a different story. It's a new story. It's not the same story. It's something else. It feels like Shakoish Yakoidim Choiz Volatzmo. No, these are the steps of Koma Beis, of the second floor. These are not the steps of Koma Aleph. They're the steps of Koma Beis. They're different steps. They look the same. I'm tired. I feel the same. But the emes is that it's Koma Beis. The emes Achshe Madrega Shekoma Beis. She Madrega Cheres. It's a different Madrega. And the truth is that a person not only should not become discouraged and be misyayish and walk away, the emes is that the person should be besimcha b'chol pam shebol l'katnus. Ki zeh siman shekodem madrega b'avodah. Because it's a siman that you're graduating to something else, and that you had overcome something of the past, and that's why you're holding by Kama Beis or Gimel Adalet. You're something new. V'yitzliach lichbaish oid chelik, and you've been able to conquer another chelik in your life that you need to conquer. Which is what we see with the Muhammad, and it doesn't mean that there's not the next step or the next level, but it's not repeating itself. It's something different. It's something new. Reish Mem Ches. However, there's something here that's deeper. Kilodai Shah Katnus Isiman al Tchilas HaMadrega Haba. Not only is Katnus a siman that you're beginning a new Madrega, Elashi HaYisod VaHashorish VaHakli L'chol HaMadrega Haba. It's not just a sign. It's actually the Yisod, the Kli, is the foundation through which you're going to be able to go to a higher Madrega. V'rakifi ech sha'omid b'katnus, and everything depends on how do you carry yourself, how do you hold yourself during this time of Katnus. So it's not just a sign of something, it's the means of attaining the higher Madrega. It's the way to get to the higher Madrega. Kach yiska acharkach l'or shel hagadlus. Kach yiska, through that way of seeing the Katnus and accepting it v'ahava as Hashem bringing you to something higher in your life, you create the kli, the rung on the ladder that will enable you to ascend to a higher level in your life. So it's not just a siman, it's the kli. Therefore, we're obligated to know. So how do I make this time into a kli? That's the big question. How do I make this time of Katnus into a kli? into the rung on the ladder that takes me higher in life, as opposed to just feeling like everything is falling down. How do I take this and make it to an Avodah? Kichol Katnus she'adam margish yikli v'yasod kedei la'agil madrega chadasha. There's any Katnus that a person feels and experiences, it's really a kli. It's really Hashem is giving you something to hold on to take you higher. Kedei la'agil madrega chadasha. Look at Tov Chav Gimel. Latam bezahu. Why is it that it works like this? Yan sheklal gadol hu shel olam lo yimashach hashefa aruchni milamala v'li shetak t'meitzel hamekabel tchila hagoshes chisar. Hashem made the world in such a way, as we've discussed so many times, Vahi Erev Vahi Boker, that there is no new shefa, no shefa that comes from above, without there first being the emptying out of a kli to receive it. And the way that we experience that in life is as a chisar. The same way that the cup is empty and it's ready to be filled, there's an emptiness that a person feels when he's ready to be filled. That's how Hashem made everything, and that's how the world was created. All of creation is built upon that Hashem created worlds and destroyed them, whatever that means. And then, until this world came, the world was created on the foundation of emptiness. On a foundation of emptiness, a feeling of emptiness. That's how all of creation came to be. And it's the same thing in a person's life. But when you have this conversation with some sweet post-seminary girl whose best friend is engaged and she's not, so this is the end of the world. You know, you're 19 years old or whatever, and you're really depressed and terrified that you're going to miss your opportunity to get married, and there's that feeling of emptiness and fear and so on. It's a time of Katnus. The correct way to see this as not in the Tefillah, but as Katnus. And Katnus means if I handle this correctly, I will be filled with determination, excitement, and simcha, and with hishtakikus, with a longing, in a healthy and positive and optimistic way to move on to the next madrega, instead of becoming dejected and depressed, which makes you pretty unmarriageable. Is that feeling of chisar, of emptiness, and the hishtakikus and the longing el ha'ar, he boina kelim la'ar. That's exactly what builds the kelim. That's how you build a kli to receive more light in your life. A feeling of katnus and of a certain chisar and emptiness, chisar that you are davening and hoping to fill in a way with, again, optimism, that creates the kli for the or. In the language of Rabbi Nachman, in Tinyon Ayin Daled, no, not Tinyon, in the first Chelik Ayin Daled, so Ha'israchakus Tchilas Ha'hiskarus, that being far away is the beginning of being near. Ha'israchakus Tchilas Ha'hiskarus. Now, if you look at the distance as being a nefila, then it's the distance is the furthest away from being close. It's distant. Rabbi Nachman said that you have to be careful and you must identify that hisrachakus is tchilas ha'hiskarus. That feeling distant and is the beginning of being close. It's tchilas ha'hiskarus. It's the beginning of closeness. Not the end of something, but the beginning of something. And there's a huge difference in how you think about it. It's not the end, it's the beginning. It's tchilas ha'hiskarus. And it's building kelim to be able to receive that or of the next madrega, the new madrega. And if you don't have these kelim, then the shefa has no place to go to. The shefa, that Or of Hashem, doesn't have a kli. Where should the shefa go? If there's no kli to receive it, where should the shefa go? A marshal is that. A marshal to understand this. Adam sheish lo she'ela, a person who has a strong question, or he has a strong problem, a dilemma. Shemoid matrido. So this question, this Indian, is bothering him. When you zaychet to hear an answer, right, to come up with the answer on your own, or somebody comes up with a fantastic answer to your question, you have tremendous simcha. But if you don't have a question, then there's no kli. If someone comes and says, there's this question, and there's the answer to the question. Now someone comes along and tells you the question and the answer. Okay, it's good. But you don't have tremendous simcha, you don't have tremendous pleasure from that. And you have much less of a feeling of value for the answer. And you're not going to remember the answer so well. Every good teacher in the classroom, this is more important with the kids, because you're just trying to help them develop. A good teacher will dramatize the question, and will create an excitement over the mystery of the answer, as opposed to the boring professors that we all remember that just get up there and say this stuff over and over again. Darkecha had one professor of Jewish history who was teaching the same course for like 60 years. He began doing it in Germany, and he continued on here in the States, and he was teaching it for like 60 years. And there was another class, it was the same Jewish history class, a different day, with different friends of ours. And he said the exact same words, the exact same jokes. Everything was exactly the same. And it was just saying this one was born, then he got killed, and this did this, and he did that, and it was just the same thing. And there was absolutely no interest or excitement and no memory of anything that he taught. We just had to cram for the exam. As a matter of fact, we had an interesting thing that took place in that class. I think I want to share with you that he would begin every class by asking, well, where did we leave off? So one of the guys got the idea to just tell him every single week the same thing. And he did that for like a month. And he said the exact same class every single time. He started saying word for word, the exact same class. Where did I leave off? And we told him the same place. And he would continue. And then finally, one time he said, this is exactly how he said it. I have the other class, and they're way ahead of you. He said, you are a bunch of morons. That's exactly what he said. They're so ahead of you, the other class. And if you had teachers like that, it's you can't remember a thing from any. You don't remember anything. It was just so you got the information. A good teacher creates a wonder in the child's mind, a wonder, excitement, with a strong kasha. I remember sitting in the presence of Soloveitchik of Rabbi Yoshe Be'ez, and the way he said his shir, even when he was already so old, the way he said his shir, you are on the edge of the sea. 3 hours. 3 hours on the edge. That's how it was like. It was such an excitement to the shir, and every single second you're waiting like for the punchline. It was such excitement. And that's why what's the big class of every year that we have is Leil HaSeder, right? That's when we became Am Yisrael, and that's Hashem's teaching us, starting the class, the new semester, really is the same. And that's why it's all questions and answers. It's questions and answers. It's with questions. Because the question is an emptiness. It's not knowing. The question, and if the question is really fine-tuned, then there's that unbelievable feeling of what. So what is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? And the Rebbe says, I want you to think about it. And it's like a cliffhanger. Then, if you come up with the answer, or when you get the answer, it has an unbelievable feeling of simcha and excitement, because then the ore flows into this kli of the vessel that was made with the question, and that's exactly what Katnus is. Katnus is a question. It's not in the feeling. It's a question. It's a question that's waiting to be answered by you. That's what Katnus is. It's a question. Kan haben shoel, like you have the instructions in the Haggadah. Here, the child asks. When you're going through something in life that's not so pashut, you should try to see the words written on your forehead or in your heart. Kan haben shoel. Here's what the child is asking. And that means with davening, it's coming to a different madrega, coming to another madrega. Kach v'kar yeshel. Then you have, when you're hungry, and then if you weren't hungry and you're eating, like after the smorgasbord, you go for the main. So then there's very little satisfaction in eating after you're full, because there's no kli in your stomach to receive this food. When you're hungry, you enjoy your food more. It's very, very posh. So we're living in a time where hunger is not part of life, not, thank God, not physical hunger, but then that affects our way of thinking too, not intellectual or emotional hunger as well. It's just, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. But hunger is a kli. Physical hunger, intellectual hunger, emotional hunger, spiritual hunger, it's a kli, it's a question. There's an emptiness that's waiting to be filled. That's my father said. I remember there was this whole time when the dieting started. My sister wanted to be very skinny, and she just to go on to a diet, and my father said, no, first he said, stop eating so much. My sister just, I remember this conversation. Like, there are like Milky Way wrappers all over the place. So stop eating so much, and then try eating only when you're hungry. So my father's the Mordechai Weinberger diet. It's the whole book. It doesn't come with a video. Don't eat it yet. And now people are getting shots for that, not to be hungry. And this became now big Indian. Everybody's talking about this business with the Ozempic. Getting shots, which is I get it. It's a big toilet, but I would like to hear what my father would say about people going and paying money to get injections, not to be hungry. If you're not hungry, or if you ate, then don't eat more. That was the whole thing. But that you can't do that on your own. So you have to pay money and get injections, which we don't know. Could be in a year from now, 2 years from now, people could have horns and stuff. And the nose is going to fall. I don't know what this stuff is all about. But this is it. This is the new answer to the question of overcoming the challenge of being overweight. I'm not talking about people that have some sort of physical issues and so on, emotional things. I don't mean to be cruel, God forbid. But you're a regular person that wants to lose a couple of pounds. Exercise and eat less. That's pretty much how it goes. You eat more, you get fat. If you eat less, not so fat. So you can make it into a whole Torah. You can write books and have movies and give courses and go to the nutritionist. So someone was telling me that she pays $250 a week to go to the nutritionist. I want all the Jewish nutritionists to make a living, but I said, what do you do there? So she, I go on the scale. I said, I'll buy you a scale for $50. You can weigh yourself at home. And she tells you that, you're not doing this, you don't have to do that, you're not sticking to the diet, you have to stick to the diet. So you could do that yourself. I understand you have to go for the first time, you get the schmooze. But after you get the schmooze, you still, and I know that every nutritionist would yell at me, how can I say it's a chutzpah, please, maybe we need to delete this, I don't know. It's a chutzpah, but I've had some conversations, even in my own family, people who have done this, And after the first shmooze, like, okay, that's what it is. Eat less. By yourself. Exercise, and you feel better. You look better. That's the whole Torah. It's the Idach Zil Gemara. Okay.